School is shit. And while there's a multitude of reasons for why this is the case, based on my very scientific research, I've come to the conclusion that one of the main reasons is because it's boring. I mean, if you actually find school material interesting, good for you, but I'm sorry, geometry or analyzing some random author from the 70s simply isn't the most interesting thing to the majority of people. But believe it or not, there was a specific time where learning in school was interesting. A time where I and many others actually got excited to learn. And that was when our teachers would show us one of the many educational video programs. Now, educational video programs were always a treat to us students, for the main reason that it actually made the learning interesting. It usually presented the class content not as notes or a lecture, but rather as an adventure or quest, with learning just being a byproduct of it. In other words, something stimulating and fun to keep our attention, while at the same time still teaching us the stuff that a regular lesson would have taught us. And the main one my school used was BrainPop. Oh man, BrainPop, where do I even begin? Now, the characters were the heart of BrainPop. Looking at this picture, I mean, these two, I'm gonna be honest, never seen them in my life. They must be new hires. I remember watching Annie a little bit, but for the vast majority of the time, I was watching Tim and Moby. And I think the aspect that made BrainPop stand out was because of the friendship between Tim and Moby. It seemed genuine. It wasn't just pure teaching, there was also little conversations and interactions between the two that any two friends would do. And when the show is built on an authentic friendship and not just a way to teach, it naturally made us want to pay more attention to it compared to a standard lesson. I remember every BrainPop would start with a letter. By the way, I just found out that those letters are from actual people. For as long as I can recall, I always assumed those letters were made up. Am I the only one who thought that? Am I just retarded? Anyways, the letter would introduce the scenario or topic, and then the middle part of the video would be for explaining and teaching that topic, and at the very end, they would always end it off with some sort of joke. Watching back some of those episodes, I'm saddened to say I don't find the jokes funny at all, like straight poker face. When I was a kid though, I always looked forward to what the ending of each episode would be. However, I will admit, it did feel a little bit limited with just 2 characters, and each episode was only 5 minutes long, so there's only so much content you could put into 5 minutes. If I wanted a more complex educational video program, I would have to go to the Magic School Bus. The Magic School Bus, aside from having an absolutely banging intro, was also a great educational show. The show follows Miss Frizzle and her class going on field trips with their school bus, and let me tell you, that school bus is not your ordinary school bus. This vehicle can shapeshift, shrink, thing has more capabilities than the Batmobile. Also, I said field trips, but I don't even know if you can classify them as such, cause I don't know about you guys, but I never got a field trip like the one shown in the show. That's also why I think Arnold was the most memorable character. You know, the guy who would always be complaining that he had to go on these adventures with the class. I think he stood out in particular because he represented some sort of relatability with us regular students who have only had regular field trips. Because while part of me thinks, man, shut up, you're telling me you'd rather stay in the classroom taking notes than going on the Magic School Bus? We can trade places right now if you hate it so much. The other part of me though, when you really think about it, realizes he has a point. Refreshing my memory on some of the field trips makes you see that they're damn near death traps. Like in one episode, they time traveled to the dinosaur era, in another they entered deep space, or went inside a hurricane. Like, I'm all for adventure, but it gets to a point where you really gotta consider, is it really worth it? Especially the one where the class shrinks and goes into Arnold's body to learn about the human digestive system. Searching it up all these years later, it's called For Lunch if any of you guys want to watch this absolute classic. Don't forget, I put y'all on. In the episode, the class follows the food Arnold ate to learn how it gets broken down and all that stuff. And if I was in that class, yeah, you couldn't have got me on that bus. At least space or time travel was cool. I'm not risking my life to learn about no damn digestive system. Bill Nye the Science Guy. Bill Nye was a science-specific show, and what really stood out about this program was the variety. He had a budget that let him go places and run experiments that seemed straight out of Phineas and Ferb to an elementary school kid. Because of that, it made science a lot more interesting compared to the lame-ass experiments school would have us do. Like, look at the man's lab, I just know it's got everything imaginable in there. Another thing about Bill Nye is that he had multiple different segments to keep things interesting. It was clear Bill Nye, the person, not just the character, really cared about science and trying to teach us science in a fun, engaging way. He was like a second teacher to me. Matter of fact, scratch that, I bet I like Bill Nye more than my own damn teacher. What teacher of mine is winning Presidential Medals of Freedom? Now, this one, I was debating if I even wanted to include it because it's a little different from the other ones I've talked about. PBS Kids is a program I never watched in school. No, the shows run by PBS were so good, I genuinely watched them outside of school. Because the others, I liked them, but only as substitutes to actual learning. I never actually watched those outside of school. The shows on PBS Kids though, stand alone as great shows, not just in a school setting. But hey, it's an educational video program according to Google, so it's in the video. The only show that I think incorporates more teaching is Wildcrats. Just looking at the cover, I don't know, it just looks more educational. And I also know it's one of the most popular shows on PBS, from what I've heard online and friends of mine, but I never watched that show. Yeah, that whole Wildcrafts is the best agenda is some nonsense. Dinosaur Train and Curious George clear. These shows though, even I can admit, I didn't learn shit from those two. I mean, I guess Curious George showed me how to be a better person, and Dinosaur Train taught me some things about, well, take a wild guess. But these shows were a lot more pure entertainment, which I'm not complaining. Why'd you think I watched them outside of school? Just thought it would be fair to point that out, since ultimately the point of this video is educational video programs. Anyways, thanks for watching. Check out my other videos if you want, and goodbye.
Oh my god!